Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cloud Architects Podcast. Chris Goosen here with my co-hosts Nicholas Blank.
Hi.
And Warren DeToy.
And me, always butting it at the wrong time. We could always
That's
do
okay.
that. Okay, take that out in post, right?
Nah, we'll see.
No, I'm kidding.
So we have a sort of a special edition episode today where the return of the Community Khaleesi Part 2, essentially. And we have Anna Chu joining us.
Hi. How are you guys?
We're doing lovely. Thank you. We're three different time zones. So, it's a good way to start the day. And the reason this is a somewhat special episode is because we wanted to get some really good information out there, and we wanted to talk about Ignite, and more specifically the Ignite call for content that just opened. And we have Anna here to talk to us about that.
Yeah. Gosh, where do you want me to start? I mean, we have been running the Microsoft Ignite call for content for many years now. And it sits right alongside all the Microsoft content that gets delivered by our employees who have a lot of announcements to share. But the value that we specifically ask the community to provide, that we think you guys are especially uniquely positioned to provide community best practices, what you've seen from the field, from the industry, very specific use cases when it comes to potentially a small business or specific verticals, and of course, great customer stories. And we really think that having that as an additional part of Microsoft Ignite makes it one of the best events that anyone from an IT or a developer background can attend.
Would you prefer full fat sessions, or do you have any preference towards things like the theatre sessions? And this is going to be a shameless plug for one of Warren's sessions he did last year, because he had amazing reviews, because he did something really complicated, but he did it in 20 minutes and people absolutely loved it. So do you prefer the full fat thing, or do you want the itty bitty little ones that can be consumed in bite-sized chunks?
Well, we want both. That's what we're asking for. So if you go to the Microsoft Ignite website right now, and if you scroll down to call for community, you'll see that there is a call for community content open, and we're asking for 45-minute breakout submissions, and we're also asking for 20-minute theatre submissions. But to your point, there is something that 20 minutes forces you to be super concise about what you're trying to say. So you cut out all the opening fluff and just gently easing your attendees into the content and getting straight into the demos. There's something really great about that, and really forces you to practice it too. A lot of people just try and fill up an hour-long session, and sometimes it's not super valuable. So there is an exercise in sort of practicing for a 20-minute session, but we are asking for both, because we know that there are plenty of people who tell us you should have given this girl 45 minutes. There's no way 20 minutes really did it justice. But at the same time, we have a lot more 20-minute sessions too. So if you were to play the numbers game, I would say, submit for a theatre session. You'll have a higher chance of getting selected. And certainly the 45-minute sessions, we do have them, but we're looking for someone who is super seasoned and we know can deliver an amazing 45-minute session from T0 to T45.
So you mentioned sort of intro fluff. We love intro fluff on this show. Intro fluff, middle fluff, outside. It's just all about the fluff. But jokes aside, though, it's not just about session submissions this year, though, right? There are other categories of submissions or things that people can submit as well.
Yeah. So there's two separate calls for community. What we launched just yesterday was the call for community champions. And we're asking specifically for two types of submissions. One is an unconference session, and the other are podcasts. So you three are very familiar with our podcast center. You've been in our podcast center at Ignite for a couple of years now. And that's a really great thing to submit for, because ultimately you get to submit to have your podcast recorded at a scheduled time. And some podcasts may be lucky enough to be selected to have their podcast delivered live at Microsoft Ignite, meaning in front of a attendee audience. What we typically do for the podcast centers is we have a stage for attendees to attend and add that particular podcast to their schedule and attend it in person. And then we have a bunch of podcast booths where you go in. It's just like a meeting room. You go in, you are there to record your content. You can have a camera set up there if you like, if that's your preference. But attendees can't really experience it live, because that's not what it's designed for. And we've certainly had requests, this is what podcasters want, and that's totally fine. But we wanted to have a mix of both. But certainly the podcasts that are going to be on center stage for attendees to listen to are going to be the ones that are the most popular, the ones that, we cannot miss. So every year we always invite Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott to do their Windows Weekly podcast. It had a long, long history, and even at Ignite, we would pack out a room, 100, 200 deep, just for people who want to see those two folks in person and to deliver that. So, so we're going to see how people vote with their feet and get those folks to be part of the podcast lives piece. So I mentioned Unconference. Now, we have not done this specifically at Ignite. We have hosted meetups before, but we want to really go with an industry term and use Unconference. And it's been something that's been wildly requested in many years past, but we really didn't know how to attempt that. And we're still trying to figure it out, by the way. And if you have any ideas, I'm all ears. But the general idea is that we're looking for more interactive sessions that attendees can be a part of. And we want people to be able to walk away from these unconference sessions with learning some practical tips, having come away with a connection with, someone or a bunch of people that are in that space. So if it was a machine learning unconference, and you'd find other professionals or people interested in that topic
or something.
Yeah, exactly. And you may be doing things that require you to solve a particular problem, or it just could be a networking, sharing exercise over the course of 45 minutes. It's really up to you, but we're looking for people who are very experienced in facilitating these types of discussions, because doing a unconference at Ignite is very different to an unconference where you're very familiar with the attendees. These are the people who would come to your unconference on a regular basis and you know them. Yes. Whereas at Ignite, it's very like you've never seen that person's face before. You've never even been to their home country, and you have to do a lot of work to break the ice, to get people to come outside of their comfort zone and share, introduce themselves at the very least, so they can start to get to know each other. Personally, for me, I've been to many conferences where I am the only person I know at the entire place, and unconferences, those types of sessions really the most memorable, and I have walked away with connections with people that I still maintain friendships with. And, we just, get each other on the phone, just trying to understand what they're doing, if they've come across a problem that I'm experiencing right now. So we think there's a lot of value when 30 to 40,000 people turn up to a big conference like Microsoft Ignite. There are so many connections, and I feel like it's just a lost opportunity if we don't make that happen.
That's huge.
Yeah,
it sounds like community is going to be even bigger and even better this year at Ignite, which is great, because last year was it was awesome. I don't think I left the Community Central area the entire time except to go to sessions.
Which I guess leads us to the next question. There is obviously as the community gets bigger and bigger, right? Mm-hmm. How do you determine who to choose, and how does somebody screw it up? Because again, you've got a lot of these dudes, they're MVPs, and we can all vouch for some of them have that little piece on their shoulder that they like to. It's like, hey, how's it going? Pick me.
I've seen a lot less of that now. I feel like we've massaged a lot of that out of the community. Not so much from the in terms of removing the people. That's what I'm trying to say. I think the MVPs, RD community, they're really learning that this is a two-way exchange. They can't just ask and expect and get what they want. They really need to communicate the value that they're not delivering to Microsoft, but to the attendees of this particular event. So if I was to, quote some specific mistakes that people have made in their submissions. Okay, first off the bat, even in this call for content, which has been open for just a little over a week now, people are selecting every single product when putting through their submission, and then when you read their abstract, they only make mention of like 3. So it's come on, help. I understand that some people aren't on the other side of that form, but for the people on the other side of that form, that particular question is to help us siphon out, okay, what is, let me try and filter this to the right person so that they can make a call on which of these 20 submissions that are aligned to IoT should be, floated to the top. But if you select every single one of them and you're not even touching IoT, you're going to be cast out. That's not going to. So be very concise. We're fixing the form, by the way, so that, because I thought, look, I know that many people are going to do multi-product submissions, and that's totally fine. I want to allow room for that, but unfortunately, people have abused that a little bit. But that's okay. We will adjust. How
many submissions is too many?
Well, I've already placed the limit. So there was a year where an individual submitted 12, and I was like, okay, pick your top 5.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Chris, you know better. Do better, know better.
It's all your fault. It's all your fault, Chris.
Could you even possibly do 12? I know it's potentially you're playing the numbers game because you want to put as many out there so you get a higher chance of being selected. But we want to know from you, what are you happily going to be willing to prepare, the maximum amount of time to deliver at a high level, high quality rather, at Microsoft Ignite. So yes. At the end of the day, you can only submit at most 5 submissions. So we've put a limit on that. And that is to not only avoid a multitude of submissions coming from one person, but also for us to understand, what are the sessions that you are really committed to delivering, and you are absolutely willing to deliver every single one of these. This week. It's a lot to commit to. And we only have technically 5 days that week. We wouldn't want to stretch you out either. So it's a mental health too.
I think people underestimate the level of effort and the level of exhaustion that goes into those sessions. And maybe it's just me, but when I'm speaking at a conference, when I'm not speaking, I'm consumed by preparing for that session, right?
Yes.
I rehearse so many times to make sure that I'm going through everything. And now I guess everyone has their different style of presenting and they do things their own way, which is cool. But it really is, there's a lot of effort that goes into it, and a lot of, it consumes a lot of time. So to submit 12 sessions, man, that would be hard. But also I think the other side of that is bombarding the folks on the other side of the form with all of these submissions, right, about things that you may not necessarily be passionate about, because ultimately we serve the community by being passionate about the topics that we talk about, right? And it shines through when you really love something, you can talk about it, and it's infectious to the community. When you just kind of, I know that thing, so I'll talk about it. It's not quite the same experience for the community and for the people attending. So you're kind of doing them a disservice as well.
Yes. And there is a bit of a danger of being super passionate about your topic too, because you end up just talking about it until the cows come home, and
then you go off track.
You go totally off track. So building a narrative and just getting to just the basics of storytelling in your 20-minute or 45-minute submission, think about that as you're putting together your title and abstract. And absolutely, I cannot stress this enough. Make sure there is some sort of learning objective in your abstract. Make it very clear what attendees should learn after going to your session. And one thing that I hate is when I go to a session and I read the title and I read the abstract and I'm like, yeah, this sounds great. And when I turn up, I get something completely different.
Yeah.
Right? Like
they got somebody else to write the abstract.
Or even someone else to turn up. I swear, like, I thought this one person was going to be there, and they kind of did the open, and then someone else took up the majority of the session. Like, what happened there? That's cool. That's a very rare occurrence.
Good old bait and switch, huh?
Or the worst bait and switch is if it's a pitch, and you're like, oh man, like I drove out all this way to get a sales pitch. Come on, nobody wants
you bought
to do
timeshare here.
Do you have any advice about session titles? Because I've noticed a trend in recent years where the catchier the title, right?
Yeah.
Like the catchy titles obviously catch your eye when you're reading through the session builder. But at the same time, when the title is too catchy or too tongue-in-cheek, it doesn't describe what you're going to get from the session.
Yeah.
So like how much is too much is essentially the question I'm asking.
I think to borrow this will be the first time Coco Chanel's ever been mentioned in this podcast, I'm sure. But she has this quote where, like, if you are getting ready for the morning and you glance in the mirror and the first thing you notice is, like, I don't know, something, you should just take it off because it's probably just, like, too much. You know what I mean? So sometimes there's a sophistication in dialing something back. And if you feel like your title is a little too clickbaity, then you should probably tone it down a little, right? Because at the end of the day, people have spent thousands of dollars, probably at a significant amount on their hotel and flight to be disappointed in your session. Yeah. And it's only going to hurt you in the evaluations, right? So set your expectations through the title and through the abstract. There's nothing wrong with a catchy title to get people interested in adding that session to their schedule. But you want to make it compelling enough for them to go, I can't miss this because of what I stand to learn from committing my time here.
And to choose that session over some other session because generally there's overlaps, And
there's so much.
There is always so much. And the constant complaint that we get is that there's just too much going on. It's like, well, yeah, this is Microsoft Ignite. Like, we couldn't just have one track. We wouldn't pack out the convention center. There's just no way. That is always the battle when it comes to any major event. You go to South by Southwest, any of those major industry events, especially for tech, and you'll always have the massive FOMO from not being able to go to the sessions that you want to go to. So the great blessing that we have is that we are recording every session at Microsoft Ignite. So that's the other thing too. When you're thinking about presenting your content in Microsoft Ignite, think about it from, and this is very difficult, by the way, keeping the quality high for your in-person attendees and making sure that your content is consumable for your virtual attendees. Because all breakouts, and I need to like put a bit of an asterisk here, all breakouts last year were live streamed, and I believe we still want to do that this year. I don't see why we don't. We don't live stream theaters. The Wi-Fi could not handle it if we did. Yes, but every single session, breakouts and theater sessions, will be recorded at Microsoft Ignite. And so even from an accessibility point of view, one major complaint that we had from our recording was that our recordings always had a tiny little thumbnail video of the person speaking, but then that just shrunk down the slides, and so it made it difficult to read code or more specific detail in slides. So again, as you're preparing for the PowerPoint deck, like, don't shove a whole bunch of text in there. Like, you don't have to do all that Pecha Kucha type presentations where it's just an image and there's no text or very minimal. That's an art form, by the way. Very difficult to do.
That's big.
But there is the beauty of that type of delivery is simplicity. So try and communicate very short takeaways from your slides, and don't use them as a they're a prop. They're not there as the main feature of your presentation. You are the main feature, and you should show up that way.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. Yeah, because I think people get very carried away with trying to cram everything that's in their mind and everything that they're looking to deliver onto the slide, and that really isn't the point of the slides. The slides
Especially
are there as a takeaway. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good advice, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we talk for a second about the third call that came out, which was for community reporters as well?
Yes. Yes. So community reporters.
Very hard job.
Oh man, it's tough. It's not easy, and it's only going to get tougher in 2019. Community reporters, we always invite 10 people from the community to be involved in a live stream event that happens on the Monday. And community reporters, they typically are sort of the filler segments, but they're a lot of fun between, the keynote and the general sessions and the tech keynotes. And by the way, we're not calling them general sessions this year. They're going to have a new snazzy title that I can't announce just yet. But but the thing is, if you're a community reporter, you can literally say, I'm in the same live stream as Satya. Like, how cool is that, right?
That's cool.
It is really cool. And but the difference is this year is there's a few. One, community reporters are going to be part of a week-long live stream. The whole week, the entire week is going to be live streamed. So
that's insane.
It's a lot of work.
I'm not the producer for that, so thank goodness. But it's really difficult to try and figure out just even programming one show is hard. Trying to figure out the entire week-long broadcast and who's going to do what and say what. It's massive. So
does the community reporter have to come up with the content as well, or do they just have to talk about it?
It's a super collaborative exercise, and the commitment is not just a 1 week. You don't just turn up and go, well, I'm here, put a microphone and a camera in front of me, and I'll go. Weeks of work go into this. You need to be available for calls so we can decide what content we can have in that week-long live stream. And so, we want to hear from you. Like, what are your great ideas? Like, do we want to do reporter on the street type interviews? And what would we want to ask of attendees? Let's take a look at the speaker list. You pick and choose which speakers you'd love to do a one-on-one interview with, that type of thing. Maybe even some behind the scenes stuff. If you want to understand, hey, what's going on behind the scenes at Microsoft Mechanics? We could get Jeremy Chapman to be part of that interview. So a lot of really amazing things, but again,
I think I might put my hand up.
Do you really? Because my stipulation this year is that if you are going to be community reporter, you cannot be a speaker. So you cannot deliver a breakout and theater.
That makes sense.
Think about like what Chris was saying before, the amount of time that goes into preparing these sessions.
Completely,
It would be just unfair on both sides. Like, you would be doing your speaking role justice and you wouldn't be doing 100%. Your community reporter role justice. So
because Tracy and Alistair have both been, and
yes,
as stressed as they were, they enjoyed every single minute of it. I mean, it's like something that they would definitely do again.
Of course.
Looks like it's incredible. I mean, if you could shake hands with Satya and Adila, I mean, that's just thanks very much.
Yeah.
Done.
I know.
You know what I mean?
What about equipment? And is that something that the reporters have to bring themselves? Is that something that's going to be supplied? How does all of that work?
Yeah, so we do a lot of the work to supply that. I think not everybody is blessed to be able to have access to that type of equipment and to the quality. And we want to make sure that we're managing the quality of I'm losing. It's 8:30 a.m. in the morning. I'm really struggling with words. So the cameras, the microphones, all that type of stuff, the lighting. But I think we're going to move away from that this year in terms of reporter selfie type reporting. Just because it's a week-long live stream, we'll already have a lot of the studio set up for that. So so we're still working that out. We may end up sending our reporters some resources ahead of time so they can do some recording in their own home studio or out wherever they are. But yeah, we're still figuring that out at this point.
I don't know. I think I could do it. I think I might apply. We'll see.
All right, but if you apply, we will just assume that you don't want to deliver a breakout or theatre, so we'll just like cancel that submission. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to make a call on what you want to do.
No. Look. I think submitting both wouldn't be such a bad idea. And it's either or. I mean, to be honest.
So what he's saying is he's only going to do 11 this year, not 12.
Yeah.
Submissions, that is. Rule with that iron fist, Anna. Rule with the iron fist.
I have to.
No. That's the best part about this whole thing is, and I suppose you take your hat off to the Ignite the Tour as well, right? Because again, you did this again and again and again and again. And so, if there's anything that you've learned, it's obviously that you need to make sure that the content is good and you need to make those right decisions. Again, is how do you make those decisions over and over again? How do you decide on where to hold it? I mean, I saw now that there's 30, and I think there's 2 in China now. I think
3.
Obviously because it's so big. So I mean, you're choosing all these different cities as well. I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously this Ignite, everybody else comes to you, but content has to be there.
Yes. Is it too early to talk about the tour and potentially thinking of how to structure your content for this Ignite that you could be chosen for the tour?
That's a loaded question, but it's a good one. And if you're thinking it, then I'm sure many of your listeners are thinking about it too. Yep. We're still working it out. The challenge with having the tour smack bang after Microsoft Ignite is that we're planning for 2 things at the same time. And really, technically, it's 31 things at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's 30 cities on the tour. And it's really hard because technically Ignite is supposed to dictate the tour. But yet the deadlines are like really coming up against each other and we're having a hard time. But So one big feature of Microsoft Ignite and the tour are learning paths. Are you guys familiar with learning paths? Okay. So learning paths.
Hang on, we are, but not maybe everyone else's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Let me try and explain what learning paths are. So we want our attendees to kind of attend a bunch of sessions in succession. So this is like when you go to a learning path about, let's just say it's on IoT, so we seem to be using that example a lot today, but we want to start off with like an entry level sort of session, then followed up by potentially a level 200 or the next level up, and it's all following a particular narrative around a particular company, a fictitious company. Usually we're using Tailwind Traders as that demo, and that's the narrative that we're driving through that learning path. And so we're looking to the community on the tour specifically to help us deliver that learning path content. Now, we will have lots of people from Microsoft delivering that content, but we're going to certainly struggle in certain cities where we're burnt out from the tour travel, we don't have the capability to deliver it in local language. So we definitely are looking to experienced people in the community, and we're looking for people from the MVP, RD, and new for the tour this year, MCT communities to deliver that content. Sorry about all the sunlight that's just coming through and like probably ruining the video, by the way, but I'm going to fix that later.
It's got a certain hue to it. It's adding to the vibe.
Yeah, I feel like I'm literally ignited by all this great content.
You might have to grab some sunglasses there just to.
Might have to.
And Chris is just getting darker.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The sun is setting where I am. No,
it's not really.
Anna stole the sun.
Yeah, Anna stole the sun.
All right, here we go. Oh gosh, I don't know if that's better or worse, but yes. So in terms of learning path content, we need to have people from the community delivering that content, And secondly, we want like unique community content too. So theatre submissions, breakouts, we still want that original community content, because the value is, again, best practices, all of the great stories that you've heard from your customers, from the community, to be shared out on the tour. So yeah, so we still want a lot of that. But I think to your other question, well, how do we select the submissions, right? It's tough because it's not. It needs to be on the merits of the submission itself, but also we want to strike the balance across all of the content. We want to make sure that we're not too skewed towards Azure or not too skewed toward Microsoft 365. We also want to make sure that we have diversity of speakers. That's a really big commitment for us too. We want to see like our best attempts of gender equality, some unique voices, like the voices of people who are underrepresented to come through the tour. We also need to make sure that there's a good balance in local, meaning local market content. So, for example, when you go to South Africa, startup industry is a really big topic of conversation. So we want to make sure that startup content, relevant content that's for startups, is available for the tour. So yeah, there's a lot of different angles that we need to try and balance it, but then ultimately where it comes down to supply. If we don't get what we need, then it's a tough call too. So yeah, there's a lot of different elements that come into the mix.
Okay, so you spoke about diversity there. If someone wants to do a session on diversity, and hugely sensitive topic, because how do you talk about diversity without ruffling someone's feathers? But assuming that someone wants to talk about either their own journey or their experience, or even how they handle neurodiversity in the workplace or gender differences, or how would they go about submitting sessions in a manner that they want to call them out as diversity sessions, and without knowing how to be politically correct, understanding that America is stunningly politically correct compared to other territories in the world?
Yes, because none of us here are American. I think. But
yeah.
So we're giving you a very big license to do that through the diversity in tech community. So Shauna Chi, she is the diversity in tech lead, and she has a specific track just on the topic of diversity and inclusion. So we're seeking those submissions. If you have a story about your challenge dealing with your bipolar disorder, as an example, then we want that submission, because even though this is a tech conference, diversity and inclusion is a massive challenge for many people in this industry. And we want to bring these issues to the surface so people understand a little bit more, can lean in and understand a different perspective and realize, hey, like this is something that we need to be thinking about and maybe approaching differently. So yes, we're absolutely wanting to see those submissions.
Does ADHD count?
Oh, what?
ADHD?
Are you speaking about yourself? Well, yes. I mean, mental health is a big thing, for sure. There are so many different aspects. If you take a look at there's a specific. If you go to the Microsoft Ignite page, we have a page on diversity in tech, and you can see a lot of the different stories that will, even just from the speakers that we will have. All the different perspectives that they will bring to Microsoft Ignite. So so we're definitely looking for those types of stories. It's not just on gender, it's a whole bunch of different things. Neurodiversity, you mentioned, a lot of the things that people may not be aware of that are just under the surface. And it comes with a lot of vulnerability too. So I highly recommend, even if your main focus is on for coming to Ignite is tech, at least go to one diversity in tech session, please. I beg you. Like, everyone who has ever gone to one of the sessions says it's the most amazing experience that they've had coming from Microsoft Ignite. So
I think that's a great top tip for Ignite from Anna Chu. It was actually a great segue into the next question I was going to ask was, do you have a list of tips potentially for first timers coming to Ignite, folks who are getting ready for their first Ignite, right? Like, because it's a marathon, not a sprint, and
yes.
once
Besides
you've done it a few times,
comfortable shoes.
Yes, the comfortable shoes is high up on the list. But I was gonna, and I realize this might be putting you on the spot here, but do you have a list of some top tips for folks who are getting ready for their first Ignite?
Oh, there's so many.
Top 5. How's that?
First one. How about top 5 that you may not be aware of? Because people talk about the shoes thing a lot, and
Gotcha.
of course.
By Friday, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, by Friday it doesn't matter.
Pizza toast anyway.
Yeah, I would say don't bring a backpack because you're gonna get one. Like, it comes with Microsoft Ignite as part of the ticket. We always give you an amazing backpack. I still use mine. I used mine across the entire tour, and they're pretty snazzy. Like, the one from last year had a little cooling pocket at the front.
Yes,
so
it did.
you know,
it was waterproof.
And it was waterproof. And they had like two side pockets for like bottles, which are absolutely necessary.
Things underneath the
the strappy things underneath were amazing.
Yeah,
we used them for tripods.
Yeah, they're really great. So don't bring a backpack, don't bring a spare water bottle because we will give you one of those as well. And that's a really big part of Ignite is to keep hydrated because it will be hot, because it won't be as hot because we're in November, by the way. We're not hosting Ignite in Orlando in September. It'll be outside of hurricane season in November. So, but also because you'll be talking a whole bunch.
So much.
And some folks dehydrate themselves in the evenings, so it's better to hydrate during the day.
Always, at least every second drink should be water.
Yeah.
Should do that.
Besides the vodka that's served on the show floor during office hours.
Oh, we got to do Shake Shack.
Shake Shack.
Yeah,
we
we've
have
got
to do
that.
Shake Shack.
Yeah,
Dude,
we all
have dreams about Shake Shack.
I can't believe you still haven't tried that yet. But hey,
we're gonna do a Shake Shack episode. We're gonna figure it out.
We'll do it in Orlando.
It's on our list of things to plan for Ignite. Don't worry.
There we go.
All right.
That's one of our planning things.
Another tip is, especially for first timers, go outside of your comfort zone and go to one of those more interactive sessions, just so that you can get to know like anyone at Microsoft Ignite. It can be a very lonely experience when it's just you and 30,000 other people at this major conference. It's kind of sad if I mean there's nothing wrong with like just having your own introvert time. I need a lot of that often because there's a lot of energy that you just need to recover from. But I would love for a first timer to come away just meeting one person that they could continue to connect with and share, their journey and maybe reunite with at the next Microsoft Ignite. And the reason why I say that is because community is such a big part of this whole industry, not just Microsoft Ignite. And we are doing our utmost to embrace that by making these community sessions happen, by inviting the community to come and speak. That type of thing. So we really encourage the community to whether it be to attend one of our unconference sessions or even just to get to know the person sitting next to you while you're waiting for the breakout to start. Chances are they're coming to the session because they're also sharing that interest in that particular topic. So why not find out what country they come from or whether this is their first Microsoft Ignite. I'm actually thinking of putting some icebreaker questions out on like the theater like chairs and and getting the purple shirts to like hand them out in the queue so that it'll start conversations before the session even starts, because like there is so much value in people learning from each other, because like you guys, you all managed to meet each other in some form of fashion through community, right? And now you're running a podcast together. You could find your future podcast partner through Microsoft Ignite, and that's a great story.
Yeah.
You mentioned the purple shirts too. I think it's important to thank the purple people, as Nick calls them, the purple people. Because they're very helpful.
They're always smiling.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Yeah, they're really great, really helpful. They always want to help out. And they like, for them, doing Microsoft Ignite is their highlight of the year. So, it's really great. You asked first-timer questions, but I have certainly tips for first-timers submitters. Like if you have been to a few Microsoft Ignites, you kind of get a sense of the vibe. But some people who are first-time submitters may not have ever been to Microsoft Ignite. So one tip I would say is don't think that you're presenting to a group of friends. That mistake has been made in the past. It's not your typical user group interaction where everybody knows you and everyone's friendly. You may have to start off with some level setting, expectation setting in the presentation itself. So make it very clear whether your presentation is level 100, which is like super foundational, or expert level 400. So when you're making your submission, don't submit something that says it's level 400 when you have to do, when there are people who are going to be really expert who will think that your content is a little, not beneath them, but they know all that stuff already. Level 400 needs to be super, super technical, like bleeding edge type of stuff. So yeah, expectation setting is very key. But I think we mentioned a few things before, like having a snazzy title but not too snazzy. I think and making it very clear what people will learn from your session is really important.
Very good. I think those are really useful, and I think a lot of people are going to find that, a lot of folks are going to find that really, really helpful with getting ready for Ignite and the ramp up to Ignite, but also those submissions, right? And that's really the key. So submission deadline is August 4th. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. So yes. By the time this airs, there'll still be some time, a little bit of time for everyone to kind of think about that and get that in for August 4th.
Yes, and I would say if you're hearing this deadline August 4th, make sure you block out an hour, however much time you need to actually do your session. Procrastination is your worst enemy because it will show in your submission. If you procrastinate, it's very clear that your title's not so great. There's grammatical errors everywhere across your abstract. Take the time because, we want you to speak at Microsoft Ignite. And if you if you don't put in the level of effort in the submission, it's very clear and it won't shine at the top of the list.
I'd argue you probably want to use an hour per session submission, irrespective of the kind of session. So you can think through your content clearly, because you're not going to be writing the whole thing then, you're just writing your session submission. And effectively, you're making a promise that you need to keep in a few months' time.
Yeah, totally. One other suggestion for someone who is maybe a first-time presenter or still, trying to find ways to practice, think about submitting that title and abstract to a user group and say, hey, I would really love to present this. I want to. You don't need to say that you're testing out for Microsoft Ignite. Just use that as an opportunity to hone in your presentation skills. The worst thing that you could do is at Microsoft Ignite, that was the first time you ever delivered that presentation. It will really show in the evaluations that the preparation wasn't quite there. And when you're in front of this massive community, you really want to shine, and we want you to shine. We want your content to be just as amazing, if not better, than the Microsoft content delivered. That's my personal goal. So don't let me down.
Anna, you have called out some people on Twitter who've had some really amazing experiences on Tech Community and have gone from lurkers to contributors to really amazed that they're interacting with the people who they see as superstars in the community or even product folks. Do you mind maybe talking to those people who would never in a million years think of standing in public, but clearly want to share and they genuinely want to help in the community, but feel like maybe they couldn't?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's very nerve-wracking. I know that public speaking is one of the biggest fears that people have. I still remember as a young kid, doing my first debate, and all I can remember was my piece of paper just shaking. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. But it took a lot of time, years, of me practicing in front of a mirror, in front of my parents, in front of my fellow students, to get to a point where I'd be fine with just going up on stage and just saying something, because it comes with practice. But I know for many people it's not that easy. So you don't have to do that. I mean, if you're, you've typically been interacting with the community in a much more passive way, but it's highly valuable, like through the Microsoft community, tech community, through Twitter, through any other means like that. Like, there's still a way for you to step outside of your comfort zone. Certainly, just being in the community zone and just hanging out there is a good start, because you'll be surprised. Like, people will look down at your name badge and go, "Oh my God, it's you! Like, you've helped me out so much. Thank you." Yes. Like, doing that would absolutely, be a starting point. And once you realize that, that a lot of people in the community do recognize you, you might start to think, hey, like, actually, maybe I could, like, share something on a more official format through a theatre session. And Microsoft Ignite is huge, but the tour is slightly smaller and a little bit more in your home country usually. So that's maybe a nice way to, like, get into that circuit. But again, local user groups, much smaller audience, could be another way to practice that too. But we invite as many people to be a part of Microsoft Ignite. Specifically, though, it is the MVP, RD, and MCT community for this year for our content. But the call for community champions, it is open to everyone. So we're not restricting it to just those 3 official communities. You don't have to be any of those things in order to facilitate a unconference or to submit for your podcast. So we are trying to keep things as inclusive as we can, but we also want to make sure for our attendees we're keeping the quality bar high. So we're going to experiment with that this year, but I am very hopeful that we're going to deliver an A-class show for 2019.
We're excited. It sounds like the community is going to be awesome.
Excited.
Very excited about this year for sure.
Yes.
It's going to be awesome.
So I guess we'll see you in Orlando.
That's right, we will.
Yeah. I expect all your submissions.
That's right.
Yes.
All
and
12.
We are all 12.
Or 36 between us.
Oh, gosh, no. 12 between you. 12 between you.
Yeah, we could do some together, right? I mean, so.
Well,
what is the before we go? What is the stance on co-presenting and
Yes.
Co-presenting.
No, co-presenting.
So, when it comes to the submissions, I think the first thing you need to do is, like, we need to approve the submission on the merits of the title and abstract itself. If you get selected to be a speaker on the merits of that submission, you've got yourself a pass. Great. Our stance is that it's really hard to manage passes when we have a very finite amount for co-presenters. So if I received a submission from you 3 for 1 submission, I have to let go of 3 passes just so that session gets delivered.
No, I suppose the other 2 should be accepted as well. I mean, so it should always be an auxiliary session. So I would submit 2 sessions and then 1 with Nick. And then if he's selected to do his session and I'm selected to do my session, then we can do one together, no?
You have to understand I'm getting thousands of submissions in.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
So it's very difficult.
How many spaces are there?
I'm not telling you that. Because it's still under negotiation. Like, I can't commit to a number when I'm still trying to get more,
No, sure.
So, but that being said, when you make a submission, submit that under the assumption that you're going to be the one delivering it. And if you get accepted, great, cool. And if your preference is to add another speaker to that session, then only let us know when that person has already got a pass by any means, whether they purchased it themselves.
That's reasonable, definitely.
Yeah, or they have also secured a speaking pass because they got their submission selected. So I know it doesn't look great when we're like stipulating those terms on the form, but you have to understand. I don't have a limitless bucket of passes, unfortunately. So
sure.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. Well, I look forward to it.
It's gonna be so much fun.
Even if I don't get accepted, I'll beg, borrow, and steal. Okay, just beg, borrow.
The Cloud Architects in no way condones anything illegal.
I've got a last question, and then we'll let you go. I read that we have to submit a video of ourselves presenting in some form or another.
I will say, I know I've had a few complaints about this, but we need, especially for someone, like if I know you guys, one of the reasons why we're asking for this is to try and balance the scales, because we tend to know when a submission comes through, it's like, oh, I know Nick, I know Chris, I know Warren, yeah, I know they're great presenters, so great, cool. But that's leaning towards favoritism, right? So we want a person to be able to, who's never submitted for Microsoft Ignite or even the tour, to be able to show how great they are as a presenter. So adding that link in is only going to help your cause, right? If we don't know you. If we do know you, we know you're like a pretty standout, well-seasoned presenter, then, you know, we don't necessarily need that. But
you have to look great in a tie.
Yeah, if you look great in a tie, yeah, for sure. Although Microsoft Ignite is not really a tie type of.
No.
Yeah.
Event. So
unless you wear it on your head.
Yeah.
Unless you're
depending on the hour.
Hey,
some people look super snazzy, and I'm all for your own personal style. Says the girl who just woke up this morning wearing a jumper. But anyway, but I forgot your question.
Video submission.
There wasn't one.
Oh, video submission. Yeah. Is it a mandatory thing? Is that what I put in there? I can't remember.
I think it
Maybe
is.
You need to take the asterisks off. But I know it's tough, but it's only going to help you if you do add that link in, because then we get a better understanding of how you deliver your content, whether you have really taken some care into the narrative. So it's only going to help you. If you don't include it, then it's going to be less evidence for us to select your submission ultimately.
Yeah. And to be fair, it could be your very first practice run.
It could be. We're not saying that it needs to be a video of that particular submission. It just needs to be a video of you presenting anything. It doesn't have to be technical. It could be.
But not in the mirror.
I've never seen anyone present in the mirror. That'd be the
No, but I'm
thing.
saying that they have to present, right? Like, so if you have to do a submission, somebody just puts it up in front of them and goes, "Hi, my name's Warren. Welcome to my presentation."
That's still a presentation, and you are recording of something.
It doesn't really matter.
Nobody in front of you. Oh yeah, okay.
Or secret life of
spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, when you get Warren's submission, now you know what you're in for.
Yeah, now that I've thrown myself under the bus. Thank you so much, Anna. You're a legend.
Oh, no, you guys are great. Thank you so much for inviting me again.
We really love having you on the show.
Yeah, let's do this again. I'm sure there's lots to talk about for Microsoft Ignite. I know I could talk about this for hours on end, but we don't have that time. So thank you very much.
Well, should we then suggest if something urgent comes up and you want to share, we'll make ourselves available. And we'd love to talk about the tour whenever that becomes topical as well.
Yes, which will probably be very, very, very soon. So I'm sure you'll get an email from me at some point.
Super happy.
Always welcome. So thanks again for making the time. We appreciate everything. And man, we're excited about Ignite this year. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
So am I. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
See you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.